Good morning, everybody. I'd like to thank you all for being here. I travel a lot, and a lot still, so it's interesting to see conferences start to come back. It still takes a little bit something to get folks out to a conference, but this is really motivating, I hope, for all of us, and I'm a pleasure to be here. I'm going to talk about something totally different than Cindy in particular, a long time and great friend of mine. And Cindy, fantastic presentation, by the way. I'm going to go a little soft and a little tech, because I think it's really important. And I'm going to spend some time talking about this new luxury paradigm, and in general, what about post-pandemic? And post-pandemic is really here. We can see it in the numbers that you've already been talking about. And while in post-pandemic means it's really a little bit more in the rear view mirror than it is in the front windshield, although there are day by day, month by month, there are worries and people do freak out, and it does impact what's going on in our marketplace. But I want to talk about a completely different cure for the pandemic than I guarantee you are used to thinking about or you are frequently hearing about, but it is the place where I live. So you already talked a lot about this. Travel is happening, and depending on where you look, it seems like it's booming. The hotel I'm staying at, not this one down the street at the Lowe's, it's really packed and really vibrant. It's exciting to see. But the part of it that isn't coming back is this luxury segment is not really coming back. And as Cindy underscored, what's really a question mark is corporate travel and meeting-related business travel. So here's a question you can imagine gets asked. But in 2019, Microsoft spent $1 billion on corporate travel, $1 billion. Now, if you look at their sales in 2020 and 2021, they're up sort of cumulatively 40 to 50% year over year. So if you're the CFO of Microsoft, your sales are up almost 50%, and you didn't spend $1 billion in travel for the last 2 years each year. Why would you spend $1 billion in 2022? That is a fundamental question that every CFO gets to ask all of their division leads and so forth, people who want to travel. Now, I think we're going to get through that, but if you're the division manager of XYZ and you're going to that CFO or controller, it's a really hard conversation to have because many businesses are doing well. But I do think business travel will come back, and we will be nevertheless faced with this newish reality. Now, you know that the pandemic was a horror for many kinds of traditional travel businesses, but mostly, other than frighten people, mostly what it really did down at the fundamental level was it accelerated known trends. Some of these trends, digital transformation, much talked about, still got a long ways to go, but in many sectors, it's really accelerated, not so much in the lodging industry, by the way. Competitions from new models was much talked about, and we can see how that has been accelerated also during this time. The mobile lifestyle, much talked about. Now we see it. We see it in our own livelihoods. We see it in the people we work with and the people we live around. Talent shortages. We used to talk a lot about the impending labor shortage or talent shortage. It is here. It's caused by people making decisions that I don't have to work at an office. I can work anywhere in the world now from where I live. I live in Colorado. My office is in Chicago, is but one example. But the mobile lifestyle can be, and the talent shortage can be about, I don't want to work anymore. I don't want to work so hard anymore. I don't want to do that anymore. So the fragmentation of labor opportunities has become global, and it's really put a crunch on what we used to depend on in terms of availability of certain skills. And then, very important there, but now really accelerating, is the importance to the performance of a brand, performance of a team is diversity, equity, and inclusion. It's really important to the team in particular. We see the power of it when done, when recognized, but it's really important to the team. But the pandemic, as we've talked about, created this one giant unknown. How will corporate and meetings-related demand return? And the truth of the matter is, while we have forecasts, Cindy showed several of them. Nobody really knows. Now, I have a good friend who used to be a very senior guy at Goldman Sachs. He taught me this one important thing in March of 2019, right at the beginning of the COVID fright. He said, Jeff, I try not to make predictions during a shitstorm. And I found that to be one of the most important lessons I learned so far during COVID. It's really hard to predict what's going to happen with corporate demand. And if you talk to travel agencies, if you talk to travel managers, if you talk to CFOs at places like Microsoft, they really don't know. Now, they have a point of view, but they really don't know yet. So change is opportunity, change is stress. For the luxury brands, I think this is going to have a lot more meaning because customers and I think investors expect the luxury brands to do better, to be innovators, to be leaders, to be ahead. And if you look around at luxury brands today, you could ask yourself, who's really innovating, who's really ahead, make your own assessment, but there's a lot more to do. So I'm going to go in a direction that's a little bit different, maybe totally different than you're used to thinking about every day. And most executives at most travel companies are not used to thinking about this either, but this is where I live. And that I'm going to tell you, and I'm going to represent that the cure for the pandemic is something called the information journey. And I'm going to talk a little bit about what that means and how one does that and what it will ultimately mean to travel businesses. Every customer is on a journey. Now, if I ask you to raise your hand as you travel, who is treated like they're on a journey versus treated like they're in some sort of hopscotch among travel events? Almost nobody feels like they're treated like they're on a journey, but the travel brand is only part of a journey. Nobody just travels and stays at a hotel. Nobody just hops in a car and goes for a drive. They're all heading someplace or coming from someplace. Nobody just flies on a flight and that's it. You're part, every bit of travel is part of a journey. And so in travel, what is going to become fundamentally important is understanding the journey, not just the lodging, the stay at the hotel, not just the flight, and so forth. So what I want to talk about is when leaders go out, when you go out and you talk about this most important task of the cure for the pandemic, the most important thing you need to do is you need to organize your data. Now, this sounds trivially simple, but no company does this perfectly. No company does this particularly well. Big brands, most little brands, organizing your data is fundamental. Here's what to expect when you start to have this conversation. You're going to be told something about data lakes, a really important metaphor for bringing all data together. You're going to hear words from vendors who want to do this job for you that will frighten you because they'll have long time frames and they'll require large budgets. You're going to talk to your marketing team or your lawyers, and they're going to frighten you with rules about privacy and security and risk and contracts of horror. You're going to talk to your IT leads, and they're going to underpromise and say it can't be done, but here's what to expect. You're going to examine products like Amazon Web Services, Azure from Microsoft, and Google Cloud. These are the giants of all technology in the cloud. And probably at the end of the day, you'll want to stick with Excel. But get started anyway, because simple is better than not starting at all. And if you get started, the first thing you'll end up with more empowered team members, more empowered employees, and you'll have a better shot at easier, faster, more innovative guest experiences than if you never get started. So here's some key principles about the information journey. And again, this is a little into the arcana of technology. It's not very techy, but this is really, really important. These are technical musts as you move on this information journey that you must get right at the very beginning. First, you've got to understand and have tools that support strict security and privacy compliance. This is a matter of software. It's not really a matter of people. Now, it's not that there's no people involved, but you must get that software right here. That is the key. You must create no tool or work with no tool as you organize your data that is proprietary. You must work in the non-proprietary world. It's usually a metaphor for the cloud, where everything is so-called open source. There's no brand name on most of this software. The tools that you start to associate yourself with as you get on this information journey have to have easy access to the hotelier's most important tool set internally. And these are things like property management systems, res systems, marketing tools, ops tools. When you're organizing your data, the most important thing after you organize is to make sure all these tools that you already have, or maybe that you're adjusting, can work with what is often going to be called a data lake. But once you're organized, the organization must hook up to all the tools that you run your businesses on. And importantly, it's got to then be useful or connect to all of your important partners. Number one important partner are team members, employees, but there could be a litany of them: ground service operators, vendors, airlines, and so forth. Now, I want to spend a few minutes talking about Journera. I'm not going to do an advertisement for Gernera. Journera is, by the way, stands for journey with an era on the end. And it's something that I founded with a bunch of partners like Marriott and American and United and Hyatt and so forth about 5 years ago to do what I knew and what we all knew was possible, and we needed people with big brands with skin in the game to try and make it so. So I mostly want to tell you what is possible, not what any one of you or your colleagues or your partners should do, but this is what is possible and what is done now. So we work in this idea that if you believe in the journey, you know you're part of an ecosystem. It's not just about your hotel. It's not just about your airline. It's not just about your company. You're part of an ecosystem. And so in the world of information, when you talk about ecosystem, what we've tried to create is this idea of an ecosystem for data, or lots of data lakes. So we represent here data lakes for airlines, data lakes for ground transportation, for lodging, and so on. All of this data starts to come together, and it's massive. At Journera, it's something like 5 billion data events, 500 million passengers, or 500 million trips, I should say, all kept alive in real time. So this is what's possible. No PII, personally identifiable information. In this ecosystem, there's no personally identifiable information. Everything that is personal is owned by the brand. It never leaves the brand. When it comes to the so-called system or data lake, it's encrypted. It's complete nonsense. The only key to decode it is owned by the brand itself. The data owner, let's say the Fairmont Hotel, makes all the data decisions. Privacy rules, relationship to customers, what the do's and don'ts of the data, and they make all the partnering decisions. So if I'm going to share data or interact or collaborate, Fairmont, let's say, with American Airlines, or Fairmont with a taxi operator, the brand owner just makes all those rules, all the economic rules, all the security rules, all the privacy rules, and the platform just implements them. So key in this world is the data is owned by you, not by Google, not by some vendor, by you. The other powerful thing about this idea that is implemented is that the data is all first party. There's no scraping, there's no pixels, there's no cookies. It's all first party data. It's all happening in real time. So as soon as a booking is made, a check-in is made, a checkout is made, a change is made, that data and that event is pushed into the system, real time. And so what you do when you have no cookies and so forth is you get this 100% view of the customer and their journey. So it's not a GDS slice. It's not a wholesaler slice. It's not a meeting planner slice. It's not a web channel only slice. It's everything. And when you begin to work in the ecosystem, it's everything for a customer, Jeff Katz, for their whole journey, their flight, their ground transportation, their hotel stays going backwards, but more importantly, going forwards. Again, when it happens, when I book, when I change, when I check in, when I board, this data all goes into, quote, the lake. So you got a shitload of data. And the question is, can I use this productively? Now, to simplify it into the reality of today, there are really two phases where this thinking comes into focus. The first is, with a lot of data, the main thing you get, Cindy showed this clearly for her world at Calibri, is insights. You can understand. And part of the challenge for most businesses is, can I understand, because there's a lot of information there, how quickly can I understand and can I act on it? The key mission is to get customers back today. Get customers back. And not just customers back, you really want to be getting valuable customers back. Again, you saw that earlier in the data. And you want to get people who look like they will be repeat or loyal customers back. This idea of using insights to get customers back is fundamental. I'll show you one example of how that's used right now. From organizing your data, you can also do this. You can begin to fabricate more seamless journey experiences. And this is really important to bringing customers back. If you want to get business travelers back, you got to make it less awful. And as we travel around, there's a lot of well-meaning people in the travel industry. You know all of them. I know a bunch of them. There's just a lot of awful experiences out there, especially when you expect more. These are the best brands in the best cabins with the best status codes. There's still a lot of awful. The way you fix that is not with people. I'm sorry. You're going to have to fix it with information, because there's just not enough people in the world to do this well anymore. So you can create experiences that delight. So two concrete examples that are happening right now. A flight is booked to LA. The information lake makes visible that there is no hotel booked. And importantly, your hotel isn't booked. What can happen the instant that booking gets made is a personalized offer, message, prompt, can go really anywhere. It can go to networks like Facebook, DV360, and so forth on the web, or it can come right out through your own customer relationship channels, email, text, badging an app, messaging on a website, flying to LA, and this is real. Here's a sweet offer for you, Jeff Katz. So this can happen today, and it can happen at scale, and you'll never in a million years do this with a great team of marketers. Never. But this is what you need to do, because you want to find me. Because I'm not staying at the Fairmont, even though I came to LA. Why? Some marketer can figure that out. But this is real. The next more experiential opportunity that's happening right now is this. Think about this. I'm using this imaginary hotel app, or it could be website, etc. And when I open it up, realizing that I probably should check in using the app seems to know my flight is delayed. Why? Because the information is connected now. A room is assigned, and I'm encouraging the person to go ahead and use the mobile key, because you want to use the mobile key and not stand in line to check in, because that's horror. It's still horror at most hotels in the universe. And these are ways to encourage people to do the right thing using the digital tools that may be there, but also feeling and experiencing a more seamless travel world. So I'm going to wrap up by saying this is happening today. It can be done. You have to, or we all have to, overachieve on fundamentals like team and guest satisfaction. Those are metrics that we want to establish and do well at. But we're going to have to take seriously and invest in and succeed in the realities of this digital transformation idea. Not just talk about it, do it. Don't just talk about it, at least get started. Don't convince yourself that you're great. Convince yourself that you can get better. All roads lead to information in one place. If you learn nothing else, If you believe nothing else, I hope you believe a little bit that you must have information all in one place, even in Excel, all in one place. All roads create benefits from knowing more about the journey. Even if you don't know everything, if you know more about it, you will be more successful. And I urge you all, and urge all your friends and all your colleagues, please get started. Thank you very much.